Some studies claim that those who regularly tackle all kinds of riddles are more likely than others to think outside the box and find unusual and effective solutions to existing problems. But even if you haven't cracked a puzzle in your life, you can still work on developing your critical thinking and analytical skills. Ready? Here we go! You have 1 glass of milk and 1 glass of water. You need to empty these glasses into a bowl in such a way that later you can separate the milk from the water. You aren't allowed to use any kind of dividers. Pour all the water in the bowl and freeze it. After that, add the milk. One company organized a betting game where 1 red and 1 blue marble were placed in a dark box. If a player picked the blue marble, the company had to pay them $5,000. But if the player guessed it wrong, they had to pay the company $100. The company cheated by always putting in the box 2 red marbles instead of 1 red and 1 blue, but no one could prove it. Mark was observing people lose one after another. Then he took part in the game and won. How did he do it? The man picked a marble and quickly put it in his mouth without showing the thing to anyone else. The remaining marble was red. According to the rules, it meant that Mark's marble was blue. The company had to pay him the money. Emma's husband Liam knew his wife had been dreaming of going to an archaeological site. One day, she told him about a perfect opportunity. There was a remote site ready to be excavated, but there was no internet or network connection there. She would have to camp in a tent with almost no modern conveniences. But since she was really excited about this trip, Liam was ready to wait for her at home. If she was happy, he was happy as well. 2 days later, Liam received a message and a photo from Emma. The man got furious. He realized Emma had been lying about the whole thing. How did he understand it? Before leaving, Emma told her husband there was no internet connection or cell phone reception there. Then how did she manage to send him the photo? There are 3 keys that can open 3 doors. What is the biggest number of attempts you'll need to figure out the key for each door? If you're really bad at guessing, you'll need 6 attempts. Key 1. 3 attempts for 3 doors. Key 2. 2 attempts for 2 doors. Key 3. 1 attempt for the last door. One king told his 3 daughters to place 3 identical kettles with the same amount of water on fire. The king promised that his heir would be the husband of the daughter whose kettle would boil first. Surprisingly, his youngest daughter's kettle was the first to boil. But the girl wasn't married and didn't even want a husband. How did she get so lucky? The other 2 daughters kept lifting the lids to check if the water was already boiling. What has 13 hearts but no other organs? A deck of cards. A rich elderly lady lived with her family in a big house. All the family members worked in the medical field. Her son was a surgeon, her daughter was a dentist, and her granddaughter was a nurse. One morning, the lady woke up to discover that $1 million she always kept in a safe in her room had been stolen. The police questioned the family members since no one else knew the code. The son claimed that he had been called in to perform an urgent surgery late in the evening. He had to spend the whole night in the hospital. The daughter explained that one of her patients had had a heart attack. She had to drive to the hospital at midnight. And the granddaughter said that she had had a night shift and had returned home only at 9 in the morning. Who is the thief? It's the daughter. She's a dentist, so she definitely didn't have to rush to the hospital because of someone's heart attack. You have 5 pieces of chain, each made up of 3 links. You have to make a long chain out of these 5 pieces. Welding an open link will cost you $3, and breaking a link open is $1. Can you make a long chain if you have only $15? First, take one piece of chain and break all of its 3 links open. It'll cost you $3. Then link the remaining 4 pieces of chain with these open links. Welding these links will cost you another $9. In total, you'll pay only $12. A man accidentally dropped a glass of water out of the window. Surprisingly, the glass didn't shatter against the sidewalk. How come? The man managed to catch the glass before it fell down. In the land of riddles, 9 numbers from 1 to 9 want to cross a river. There is a boat, but it can't carry more than 3 numbers at a time. Plus, the sum of the traveling numbers has to be a square number, and the boat can't move on its own. How many trips will be needed for all the numbers to cross the river? At least 7 trips. 2 plus 5 plus 9 equals 16. 9 goes back. 3 plus 4 plus 9 equals 16. 9 returns. 1 plus 7 plus 8 equals 16. 1 goes back. 1 plus 6 plus 9 equals 16. Isabella is standing behind Mia, but at the same time, Mia is also standing behind Isabella. How is it possible? The girls are standing with their backs toward each other. A man was found unconscious in the park and was immediately rushed to the hospital. He had been hit on the head with a blunt object. The police soon found out his name, William, and located his cell phone. They called the last 3 people William had contacted before the accident. They were Sophia, the wife, James, the brother, and Ben, the best friend. All of them were invited to the police station and asked what they knew about the accident. James said, "I'm sure it was Sophia who did it. She has a secret lover and wants to divorce William, but my brother is against this idea." Sophia said, "I was far from the park when it all happened. I was visiting my lawyer. I bet it was James. Several weeks ago we found out that William had to get a large inheritance, and James was furious about it." And Ben said, "Both William and James like walking through that park. By the way, have you heard that William got a large sum of money and James thought it was unfair?" Which of these people hit William? The police officers didn't mention that William had been hit in the park. It means that Sophia and Ben committed this crime. A beautiful water lily grows in the middle of a tiny pond. The flower doubles in size every day. You know that in 10 days it will cover the entire pond. The question is in how many days the lily will cover half the pond. It'll happen on the 9th day. The lily doubles in size every day. It means that it'll cover half of the pond one day before it covers the entire pond. Hannah has bought 10 apple trees for her garden. She wants to plant these trees in 5 rows so that there are 4 trees in each row. Is it possible? Yep, it's possible if she plants the trees on the edges of a 5-pointed star. Several bank workers visited a canteen in their office building. Since it was the Riddle Day, Matthew, Isaac, and Wyatt were served tea, and Hunter, Christian, and Nathan drank coffee. What drink did Aaron get? Aaron had to drink tea, even though he doesn't like it, simply because he has a double-letter name. A man was terribly tired after a long working day, but when he finally lay down on his bed, he couldn't fall asleep. He was turning and tossing until eventually he picked up his mobile phone, dialed a number, listened to several long tones, and hung up. After that, he immediately fell asleep. How come? His next-door neighbor was snoring loudly. The phone woke the neighbor up, and the man managed to fall asleep. Mark and James played in a dark and dirty attic. When they came down, Mark's face was covered in dust, while James' face was miraculously clean. At the same time, it was James who went and washed his face. Why? James looked at Mark's face and thought he was dirty too. But when Mark looked at James, whose face was spotless, he decided he was just as clean. Oliver has in mind one of three numbers: 1, 2, or 3. Charlotte is allowed to ask him just one question to figure out which number it is. Oliver can answer her question only with no, yes, and I don't know. What question should Charlotte ask? She can say, "I have the number 1 or 2 in mind. Is your number larger than my number?" If Oliver answers yes, it means he's chosen 3. If he answers "I don't know," the number he has in mind is 2. And if he says no, his number is 1. When do you look at number 2 but say 10? It happens when you sneak a peek at your wristwatch. Mike was surprised to see the window in his room slowly open. 2 men in masks climbed inside and started to put all the expensive things they noticed in their bags. 20 minutes later, they left through the window, and Mike continued to do what he had been doing before. Half an hour later, Mike forgot all about this accident. Mike was healthy and in his right mind. Why didn't he stop the burglars? Mike was a baby lying in his crib. Detective Larson was supposed to provide security on a luxurious cruise liner. One day, the ship got into a terrible storm. Most passengers stayed in their cabins, suffering from seasickness. But suddenly, the detective heard some strange noise coming from the deck. He rushed there and found a man lying unconscious on the floor. When the man came around, he told his story. "I was returning to my room when somebody hit me on the head and took my money and mobile phone." Sometime later, Detective Larson found 2 suspects, Jacob and Mike. Jacob claimed that at that time, he had been in his room feeling terribly sick. And Mike said that he hadn't left his cabin. He stayed there reading a book. Who's lying? Mike is lying. It would be impossible to read a book during such a violent storm. Nick was an experienced skydiver, but one day something went wrong. A strong wind brought him to the forest, and the man found himself among trees with no food or water. Soon, Nick saw 4 roads in front of him. One led to a supermassive black hole that was consuming everything around. The second road ended in a lake full of sharks. The third road led to a mountain that was impossible to climb over. And the fourth road ended in a bottomless abyss. Which road should Nick take? He should follow the third road. No one says he has to climb over the mountain. He can simply go around. In the middle of a pleasant evening, several cafe-goers heard some commotion coming from the back of the place. Something heavy was falling, and they could hear glass shattering. One of the clients called the police. Soon after that, the cafe owner rushed inside. He found a police officer in the back room. The man explained that he had gotten a call and driven to the cafe right away. Unfortunately, he was alone and couldn't stop the criminals. They managed to escape in their sports car. But the owner didn't believe the police officer's story. Why? When the owner arrived at the cafe, there was no police car at the entrance. Emily gave birth to a girl. She was very happy. But the next day, when a nurse brought Emily her baby, the young woman immediately understood that it wasn't her daughter. How did she figure it out? Because that baby was a boy. You've bought a cute little rabbit at a pet store. The animal can breed every 2 months, and every time it will deliver 5 babies. How many rabbits will you have in a year? You'll still have only 1 rabbit. If you want to have little bunnies, you have to buy the second rabbit. Captain White Star was on the bridge of his spacecraft when one of the engineers informed him there was a problem with the engine. They needed to land as soon as possible to repair it. There were 3 planets nearby. One of them was freezing cold and covered with ice. The second was boiling hot and covered with molten lava. And the third planet was covered with acid that could easily destroy the ship. Which planet did the captain choose? The captain chose the cold planet. Very low temperatures aren't a problem for a spaceship. Lily came home and saw her favorite vase shattered. Extremely upset, she exclaimed, "What's happened to my vase?" Her husband, Sam, explained that around lunchtime, he heard a loud crash from their bedroom. He rushed there and saw that Lily's expensive vase had been broken and a burglar was running away. Sam followed the man outside, but his glasses got foggy because of the cold weather. That's why he missed the man. Lily called the police, but after police officers heard the whole story, they refused to investigate this case. Why? Glasses fog up when you enter a warm place, not vice versa. Sam invented the story because he was afraid to admit he had been the one to break the vase. In the middle of a long flight, 2 criminals stood up and started to threaten the passengers. They demanded $1 million and a helicopter. One of the criminals had a pilot's license and could fly a copter. When the plane landed at the nearest airport, the criminals got everything they had requested, a case full of money and a helicopter. But when they got inside, they didn't manage to fly away and were captured by the police. Why couldn't they start the machine if it didn't have any technical problems? The helicopter was okay, but there was no fuel in its tank. You're walking through the forest and suddenly see a crossroad and a man standing there. One road leads to a village with a criminal gang, and the other to a safe place. You don't know whether this person is a criminal, but you can ask him one question. If the man is a criminal, he'll lie. If he's from the safe place, he'll tell you the truth. Which question should you ask? The question should be, where is your village? If the man isn't a criminal, he'll send you to the safe place. And if he's a criminal, he'll lie and point toward the safe place as well. A criminal has kidnapped your friend and tied him to a tree. A huge, vicious dog is guarding this tree. You need to save your friend at night. But when you come to that place, you only have 1 piece of meat with you. It's not big enough to distract the dog for the 3 minutes you need to cut the ropes and help your friend escape. How can you solve this problem? Cut the meat into small pieces and throw them all over the garden. Once, there was a marathon in the city. The marathon sponsors provided the runners and staff with water and other drinks. But soon, some people started to feel unwell, and most of them were rushed to the hospital. Doctors found out they had been poisoned. But then, how come the rest of the participants were okay? The poison covered the necks of the bottles. Only those who touched the bottles with their lips while drinking were poisoned. You were wandering through the forest, trying to find a way to the train station. You meet a man who warns you that soon you'll see a crossroads. There will be a post with several signboards. The right one will lie, and the left one will tell you the truth. A bit later, you see this post. The right sign says, "To the train station," and the left one says, "To the forest." Which direction should you choose? If the right sign lies and the left sign will lead you back to the forest, go straight and you'll get to the station. Three friends met at school after summer vacation and started sharing their stories. Ellie said she had been traveling with her parents all over New Zealand. Peter boasted that he had been to Austria with his father. They were skiing from the steepest slopes. And Lauren went on a business trip with her mom. They spent 1 month in Latin America, and the girl even picked up some Latin. One of the three friends is lying. Who is it? No one speaks Latin in Latin America. They use Spanish and Portuguese there. Lauren's the liar. Every morning, the same man crossed the border by bicycle. He had nothing but sand in his bags. Customs officers knew that he smuggled something, but they couldn't figure out what it was. What did the man smuggle? He smuggled bicycles. Jacob owned an electronics store in a small town. Once a huge crowd of people gathered near his store because a new game console sold at $1,000 hit the shelves. Jacob was working hard from the very morning till the very evening. He counted the money, gave change, and handed out clients' purchases. When he was about to close his store, a man entered. He asked for a console and handed Jacob 2 bills. He had enough money to buy the console, and Jacob didn't even need to give him any change. But the store owner immediately called the police. Why? The console cost $1,000, but the man gave Jacob only 2 bills. It means that each of them was a $500 bill, but those don't exist. Which number is missing? 234. 23. Nope, it's not 4. The missing number is 5. You need to get subsequent 234 and 235. Your bathtub is filled with water. Your task is to empty it as fast as possible. You can use a spoon, a cup, or a bucket. What will you choose? Choose to pull the plug out.